So where do we start? I want to start with a throttle. Throttle is important because if you look at the, you got to find out whether it's reversed or not. So if you look at the, where does it show it here? Okay, so on page 18 of the manual, it shows that the throttle is right here, and the push rod goes through to the front where the engine is, and that the servo arm is pointing toward the interior of the cabin, not to the exterior. So we'll plan on that. So the throttle arm, here's the throttle. So the throttle arm is going to go in this direction. So now that that's centered, what do you have to do? Well, okay, first off, I'm going to move the throttle trim all the way to 0. So now the throttle trim is down here all the way to 0, and the throttle's all the way back. And haven't changed any programming on the servo yet. But I think I will do that. I'm going to go in before I do anything else. I'm going to go in to servo setup and move the throttle up to about 50%. In other words, that centers the servo. And I'm going to change the throttle setting where it's flashing there. Instead of 100 and 100, I'm going to move it down to about 80. Because in my experience, the throw of the throttle never needs 100%. So I'm going to start with it in the middle and go from 80 to 80. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to set the throttle to, tell you what, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to back out. And generally the throttle trim is in the middle. But to center the servo, actually I'm going to leave it at minus 100. So I'm going to put the throttle to 50% up, so the throttle stick is up to 50%. I'm going to put the arm on the throttle and try to get it as centered as we can. And, you know, one tooth plus or minus won't make a huge difference. So let's see what we can do here. There we go. All right, so you can't get it exact, so one tooth up or one tooth down and decide which way works better. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it one tooth up instead of, no, I think I'll do it one tooth down and look a little more centered. Okay, there's one tooth down a little bit, so it's about, instead of at 90 degrees, it's about at 80, 85 degrees. Okay, so then we can watch the throttle go forward and back. I'll just set the arm in place. I won't screw it in yet. Okay. So the arm is going this way. Now, is that going in the right direction? Let's think about that. So if you look at a picture, the push arm on the engine is toward the bottom down here. So when you go this way, it'll open the throttle, and if you pull it, open the carburetor. If you pull it back all the way, it closes the throttle. Tell you what, so it's going in the right direction actually, so we're not going to have to reverse that, but I notice the throttle arm will probably be better off. Let me go back to center. The throttle arm will be better off having a little more forward throw in the backward throw. So I'm going to go one tooth up on the gear, like that. Okay, so the throttle arm in the center position is not centered, but is up slightly. And that's going to give better clearance out here for the push rod to go in the last hole. The push rod here is going to have a clevis in it, and I'm going to use a Z-bend in the throttle control arm. So there will be a clevis in this on the push rod, and I want to make sure that there's a nice good clearance there for that, because it's going to go up in that direction. So that looks good. So now I'm going to go ahead and screw that in place just so I don't lose it. Now, these high-tech servos that have the single arm that's adjustable, there's a I guess you call it a rack type of tooth here, which prevents it once you screw this in. It actually prevents it from sliding anywhere. Okay, so I'll screw that on in a minute. In fact, let me go get the little #1 screwdriver here and screw it in. Okay, so now the exact distance out that this will be, I'm going to start it with a maximum out, because there's not going to be any interference from the other servo. Okay, so I'm just going to let the arm extend out to the maximum possible. Okay. Okay. So that arm is done, and let me stop here a second, and I'll get the wings ready next.